everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside 60 Days, the after-show discussion that goes behind the scenes of the new A&E TV show set in the Clark County Jail. The show, called 60 Days In, follows 7 innocent participants who decided to go undercover in the jail for 2 months. In last night's episode, viewers watched as another cast member exited the show early due to an illness. One participant found intel on contraband for the jail, and everyone got to celebrate a happy Thanksgiving. Here with me to talk about last night's episode is Jennifer Ortiz, a criminal justice professor at IU Southeast, and Clark County Jail Commander Major Sam Beard. My name is Claire Munn. I am the digital editor for the News and Tribune and your temporary host for today's episode. Our regular host, Elizabeth DePompe, who is the public safety reporter for the News and Tribune, will be back next week. Thank you both for being here with me today, and let's get started. So it was kind of a long time coming, but Robert ultimately left the show last night. He had been having stomach pains and severe constipation right before going back into the general population after being in segregation. So my question to both of you is, do you think he was faking it, or do you think it was real?
I definitely think he was faking it. I think as soon as Scotty Maples told him that he was going back in general population, all of a sudden he was sick. And I just think that he didn't want to go back into Gen Pop because he realized just how tough jail actually is.
Mm-hmm.
And turned out to be quite the vacation he expected.
It did not.
You know, it's jail. You know, again, I've always said you could build this thing like a golf house. It's the people you put in it. And Robert's one of these guys that he couldn't survive in jail. He knew it, so he got constipated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe it was all that commissary he was eating. Someone on Twitter asked, Jeff was the first one to leave, and they asked, did the inmates ever question Jeff's absence? But also, I wanted to know, do you know how they get the participants off the program without raising suspicion from jail staff?
They just release them.
Yeah.
They get a release from a court. They release them.
Okay.
Judge calls it, release this guy. All that can be set up.
Okay. Jennifer, do you think Robert learned anything, or we learned anything from Robert?
I'm not sure if Robert learned anything. I think internally he learned that jail is not a country club, but he's never going to show that externally. I'm not sure how much useful information the sheriff got from him, just because, he only spent a few days inside of a pod and then, messed with the cameras and spent 30 days in solitary. He doesn't give us a real perspective of solitary because he treats everything like it's a joke, and the guys in solitary are not experiencing solitary the way he was.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems at least one of our participants finally got some info for the jail on contraband smuggling. Tammy finds out that they're bringing them in to the pods underneath the trays. Major Beard, can you tell us maybe how something like that would happen, and how big of a problem is that in the jail?
It's, contraband moves several different ways. One of them has always been the food trays. It's not surprising to me. We have people in the section that are diabetics get different colored trays. The inmate workers that are working in the kitchen can tell them, hey, it's on this tray, that tray. And when you see Amber in there, it's Amber Kinsey, something like that's going to start. I've been dealing with Amber Kinsey. She's grew up in the jail, and she's comfortable in the jail. She's somebody in that jail. She comes right in and she writes all these little messages for Thanksgiving, and she's marking her territory.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we also see inmates making their own contraband with these so-called crack sticks, where inmates smoke them to get high. We see Isaiah kind of be tempted by that a little bit. What kind of path do you see him going down in the next few episodes? You
got to remember, Isaiah didn't come from a real structured environment. He's 18 years old. He's young. He's influenced. He gets around Trayshawn, is that correct? Mm-hmm. He gets around Trayshawn. Trayshawn starts stealing Kool-Aid, and Isaiah admits, I'm a lookout. You got to understand, inmates are smart. Not only do they look out for other inmates, if a staff would have come in there, I don't know if Isaiah would have did this, but they usually announce, hey, how you doing, Officer so-and-so, in a loud tone of voice to let everybody know there's a corrections officer in there. Mm-hmm. But Isaiah's past really affects him.
I'm actually kind of worried about him because he is young and he's very impressionable, and I think Trayshawn picked up on that. and he picked up on his youth and is now kind of using him. We don't really see it. I'm concerned as to whether he does smoke that crack stick, which, by the way, doesn't have any actual drugs in it. I had individuals explain to me what it is, and you soak like toilet paper in coffee, and then you microwave it, and then you wrap nicotine from the e-cigarette in it. So you're basically smoking nicotine in coffee, but I guess it gives you like a small buzz. But I am concerned as to whether he actually did smoke that crack stick when he was behind the curtain in the cell.
Is there anything you think Isaiah can do to backtrack and get back out of there, or do you think he's kind of stuck now?
I think that he's put himself in a position where he's stuck because you've already moved in this direction. It's going to be hard to move back. I think if he had said, "I'm not into that. I don't do drugs. I don't smoke, whatever," that they may have been like, "Oh, okay, no problem." But once you put yourself in a situation, I'm not sure he can take himself out.
Kind of along the same lines, we've been seeing a lot of friendships being made between inmates and the participants. And the question I have for both of you is, what do you think about Zach's relationship with Brian compared to that of Isaiah's and Trishawn's?
Well, Zach and Brian's relationship really, when I saw Brian's story, it really affected me because I have a major concern with veterans who are incarcerated, right? So right now, we have just over 180,000 veterans incarcerated. 77% of those have been honorably discharged, so they served our country honorably. But 55% of those have been diagnosed with some type of mental disorder. So a lot of them are suffering from PTSD, and a lot of what they're doing is a result of that PTSD. And I feel like we're taking these men and we're breaking them, and then we're putting them back in society, and then when they do something wrong, we are punishing them. So seeing Brian really affected me. I think their relationship is different because Brian might look up to Zach, like you're a Marine who didn't get hooked on drugs even though you are here with me. And there is always going to be that. A Marine is always a Marine, is always going to be that sense of camaraderie. I don't think that relationship is going to be toxic. I think Isaiah and Trayshawn is more of a toxic relationship.
Well, with Zach and his relationship to Brian, it's not, they're both in this together. One's not dominating over the other. Trayshawn is dominating over Isaiah. Isaiah's fallen into it. Brian and Zach are sort of on the same level. They've been through the same things. And like Miss Ortiz says, when you go through war, like both of these men have been through, you see some traumatic stuff. And it's just not, Brian got shot. It's just not that, it's just seeing stuff. Seeing these explosive devices and seeing your buddies go down like that. It takes a little bit of your psyche.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's a good idea for Zach to try to help Brian maybe and encourage him to get better?
I do think so, because I think Zach is probably the only person in that jail that Brian is actually going to listen to, because they feel as though they are blood brothers because they're Marines. I just don't want Zach to feel bad if he can't save him, because addiction is a very strong disease, and you can't save addicts who don't want to be saved.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a lot of programs coming into jail, and some of these people that leave programs get their hopes high for this person. They really got their attention. They really think they're getting it, and all of a sudden they do something in the jail, and you can see the person leading that group going, "Oh, I thought." You can't let your emotions, you can try to help somebody as much as you can, but you can't get emotional when they fail. You can't. It's just the way it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems that no matter where Zach goes, he seems to just get along with the inmates. You think that kind of leads back to his Marine experience and getting along with other people and adapting to those environments?
I do think it has a lot to do with him being a Marine. Marines adapt. But I also think that if you watch him and the way he carries himself, he tries to stay out of everything. Inmates respect someone who does their own time, someone who isn't there trying to be involved in the drama and the problems. And you see him on his bunk, and he reads and he sleeps, and he really doesn't try to get involved in really all of the issues in the pods.
Mm-hmm. Zach is showing strong characteristics inside the jail. He's a strong person. Inmates look up to that. Mm-hmm. Isaiah's getting preyed on right now.
Major Beard, were you upset that he put his pictures back on the wall with toothpaste?
Yes.
Yes. I thought you might.
I don't know. I just, I've seen some things along this program that needs to be fixed. We've been working on the cleanliness of the jail, and nothing gets hung up with toothpaste, nothing gets hung on the lights. Really, there should be no pictures hanging in your cell. I don't care if it's your loved ones. You know, you can keep them in your property box, look at them.
Well, switching over to the women's pod, we saw two of our participants clash a little bit this episode. Miriam and Barbara, neither of which know the other is in the program at this point. But Barbara got very upset when it appeared that Miriam drew a picture of a foot stomping on an American flag. And whether or not she meant for that to look that way, do you think Barbara overreacted? And if so, why?
I think Barbara did overreact. The picture was drawn sideways, and you'd have to turn the heart in order to see what she saw, but I think she was interpreting it, and I also think that she's missing her husband, and she feels very emotional, and part of it is my husband, you know, is a military man, you know, and he's fighting for your flag, but I do think, just like Sheriff Knoll said on the episode last night, small things get blown out of proportion. Really small issues become very major issues. Her husband wasn't upset. Her husband was like, freedom of speech, you know. I fought for those rights, for her to do whatever she wants to do. But I think it's being incarcerated, and there's so much tension that really small things become really major things.
Major Beard, what do you think?
Drama.
Yeah.
I mean, and like I said, in the female pods, there's just a lot of drama.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, looking at that don't amount to a hill of beans, don't change the dynamics of the jail at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, someone else on Twitter asked, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to answer this, are they going to have a group debriefing or like a follow-up show where they all meet each other and realize they're participants? I know you did a lot of the exit interviews for the show.
I actually know the answer to that question, but I'm not sure if I can answer
Okay.
it. Like, I'm not sure if I'll get in trouble answering it. There are individual debriefings of each participant, but as far as them coming together.
Okay, we'll have to wait for that one. Well, something interesting we did get to see this episode was how the jail celebrates Thanksgiving. The inmates got to have turkey and pumpkin pie. Major Beard, can you tell us a little bit about how the jail celebrates holidays and if you do anything differently for the inmates?
We always, listen, being incarcerated, being a corrections officer coming up in it, I was always told to be attentive to inmates around the holiday times because that's when they have a tendency to get depressed. That's when they have a tendency to feel lonely. So if we can take their mind off that and serve them a huge meal, which you've seen the meal, it's huge. But we do that on all holidays. We sort of go overboard because we know emotions run high on holidays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was the participants, I think especially, were very upset that they couldn't spend time with their families. That kind of suppressed that feeling for sure. Well, over in D-Pod, it seemed like they were just, mainly just enjoying the food, but that was about it. While in F-Pod with the women, they wrote gratitude notes and went around and said what they were thankful for. Do you think something like that would ever go over well in D-Pod?
No.
No. Yeah.
I think it would be probably perceived as a sign of weakness, as opposed to a sign of, something positive.
Right. All right. Well, last question. What are you both looking forward to next episode?
I'm really looking forward to Robert's debriefing because just seeing Sheriff Knowles and Scotty Maple's faces during the brief clips just suggests to me that something interesting will be said or something interesting will happen in the debriefing.
I want to see how Zach reacts to Hooch being under one of them bunks. And that's, everybody wants a cell, and that's okay. I get it to have a little bit of privacy. But if contraband's hidden, it's not going to be hidden out in the open, so it's usually going to be in the cell.
Right.
Let's see how he reacts.
All right. Well, that's it for this episode of Inside 60 Days. For more 60 Days in coverage, visit newsandtribune.com/inside60days. To ask our panelists your own questions, tweet @newsandtribune using the hashtag Inside60Days. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you to the Jeffersonville High School students behind the cameras, and thank you for watching. Have a great weekend.